Hi everyone, in today's video we're going to have a look at health and safety regulations for the second year. So to recap on what we went through last year, so looking at who BSI are, who the International Standards Organisation are, what RoHS is, what the directives for batteries, plastics and physical packaging are, and what different labelling means on products. So I'll go over these briefly because this is the revision video, but if you're not sure of anything, you want to have a recap, please do look at the first year video because that does go into it in quite a little bit more detail. So the first one is BSI, which is the British Standards Institute. So that's where you have this BSI logo here. So that is an organisation in Britain that involved in the UK standards testing products to make sure that it's safe to be sold and used in Britain. So companies that wish to have their products sold on the market in Britain have to pay to have them tested to these standards. If it meets the standards, great, it goes off, it can be sold. If it doesn't, they need to make some changes or scrap it and come up with something different. So it works as a way of reassuring consumers that they are buying a safe product. So the little one down here, the little triangle with the line, so that's called the lion mark, and that lion mark, that will be found on children's toys. So BSI does testing for a lot of different types of products and services. I'll say please do go back to the previous video because you'll see the I went through quite a long list of all the things it can test, and the lion mark then is specifically for children's toys. So ISO, which is the International Standards Organisation. So BSI, they are the British standards, but there are over 150 other national standards bodies, so each country they're more than welcome to have their own one. British standards happens to be a very reputable one, so a lot of people do use those standards as well. But the ISO is the international standards. So if you want things to be sold internationally, it's a good idea to have it tested under ISO standards. It's not compulsory, but realistically, if you want other countries to accept your products, you need to be seen as meeting these standards. You've then also got the CE mark, which is for the European Union. So that means if you buy something from the European Union and import it in, you know it's been tested to a certain standard and it's safe. Obviously, with Brexit happening in January of 2021 and Britain no longer being in the European Union, we will still see CE mark products in Britain, because if you buy something from Spain, from Germany, and then bring it to England, it will still have the CE mark on there. You then got the RoHS, which stands for Restriction of Hazardous Substances. So this restricts the use of specific hazardous material, which can be found in electronics. So out of the 10 specific substances, 4 of them are metals. So lead, which is why you no longer have things like lead paint, lead pencils, lead in solder, mercury, cadmium and chromium. And then you've got the battery directive. So this deals specifically with restriction of hazardous substances and the safe disposal of batteries, which is why companies can't just chuck batteries in regular bins and put it into a landfill. It needs to be disposed of safely and properly. You've got your plastic identification code. So obviously we've gone over this before in plastic theories. So numbers 1 to 7, 1 being the best to recycle, 7 being it's not going to be recycled. So it's on there for 2 reasons. 1, so you as a consumer can identify it and make right choices, and 2, so the people sorting it can identify it a lot easier. It is now moulded into most plastic products, opposed to labels, because obviously labels do come off over time. You've then got the FFC, which is the Forest Stewardship Council. So this is on all paper-based products that have been sourced from a renewable resource. So things like construction timber, paper products, toilet paper, tissues. If it has the FSC logo on there, it shows that it's been sourced sustainably. You've then got packaging directives. So the aim of the packaging directives is to reduce the amount of waste material in packaging, so trying to reduce how much packaging is actually used and to check that it can be recycled as well. The WEEE directive, so this is waste from electrical and electronic equipment. So this covers the end of life of products, electronic products. So again, doesn't just get, like with battery directive, doesn't get chucked in the bin and then put into a landfill. It needs to be disposed of in a responsible way. Your EC energy labelling. So this is compulsory on all household appliances. There's your microwaves, your fridges, your dishwashers, your washing machines, kettles. all of those things. And it shows how energy efficient it is. So if something is really energy efficient, it's going to cost less. You're going to waste less energy, and then it will cost you as a homeowner and a bill payer less money. Whereas something is really poor, like a D, it means it is not very energy efficient, and your bill's going to go up. So it lets consumers make informed decisions about what they're buying. You got EU eco-labelling. So this is completely voluntary. So this basically is the stamp of approval that you're meeting a high set of standards for environmental excellence. So companies do it because it helps their public image. So obviously in now, not every this day and age, companies are trying to make sure they're seen as being as environmentally savvy as possible, because consumers are being a lot more environmentally aware and want to make the right decision. So it does well for the company. It's a good image for the company if they can show they're meeting these standards because they've got this labelling. And then the EU Energy Star. So this is an agreement between the EU and the US to standardise how IT equipment is labelled to show how the energy is used. So that is sort of a quick recap from last year. I've gone over those in more detail in the first year video. So if any of those don't quite come back to you, please do go back to that previous video and have a look through. So we're going to have a look at a few questions now. So first one. Legislation and regulation has been introduced in order to limit the effect of consumer goods upon the environment. Explain what impact these have had on two of the following: packaging, energy use, end of use disposal. So you've got 14 marks. So 14 marks, 7 points for the explanation. They need to talk about two of the given points. So really you need 3 points for each one, and then explained, and then have a summary at the end of it. So remember that a long mark question that you're asking to explain or discuss something, you do need to have a summary on it as well. And please do note, you'll have to name specific legislation as part of your answer. You can't just keep things generic. You'll need to be able to talk about those specific legislation or directives to get the full marks. So 14 marks, 14 minutes. Pause the video, have a go at answering it, use your textbooks, and then we'll come back and go through the answers. Okay, so this is taken from the marking criteria. So, like I said, you will need to be able to talk about specific directives or things. So we look at that packaging. So the packaging directive, which was introduced in 1994, but then amended in 2014. So this sets target for reduction of packaging waste, recycling and reuse. It also then limits the amount of toxic material you're allowed to have in packaging. And then by 2008, 60% of packaging waste to be covered and 55% recycled. Manufacturers could limit packaging and use of non-recycled plastic, use of biodegradable material, things like carrier bags, bags for life, having a tax on carrier bags. So when you have the 5p bags now, supposed to get them for free. So energy use, so having energy labelling, the EU directive introduced in 1996. States that electric applications such as washing machines, refrigerators will be graded from A to G according to energy use. Appliances which have a standby mode use solar energy, sensors to switch on and off, improved insulation, non-conductive materials, smart materials. So your answers may also refer to motor vehicles like domestic heating and that type of thing. And then end of use, you can have the WEEE directive implemented in 2006, applies to electronic and electrical products and be able to be dismantled, parts reused or taken apart. You may also talk again about some non-electrical products as well. So, like I say, if you look back through, so you pick two of them. So, personally, I would have picked the packaging one and then end of use. So, packaging one, quite a simple one. That's where you talk about the packaging directive, the fact that it's limiting how much packaging it can use, how much toxic material it can use, how easy it is to take apart and recycle. So making sure you can actually you don't necessarily need to know about the years that it was implemented. Okay, it's added in there now just as a reference, but you won't, as long as you can name it, so it's the packaging directive, okay, that's fine, that can give you a mark. Then you can talk about what it covers. So don't necessarily worry about the years it came in, but make sure you can talk about the fact that, okay, it limits the amount of packaging waste, how much of it can be recycled, how much of it can be reused. It talks about reducing the amount of toxic material, and the aim to have 60% of it to be recovered and 55% recycled. Talk about the manufacture of it, making sure you're not using non-recyclable plastic, using biodegradable plastic, things like bags for life, that sort of thing. Okay, so don't worry about necessarily the years that came in. Make sure you can name them, so packaging directive, energy use, eco-labelling, WEEE directive, and then talk about what it covers. So next question, using specific product examples, analyse the impact of legislation on the design of electronic products. So 10 marks. So 5 points with evidence. So aim to pick maybe 2 or 3 different examples of electronic products. So it says you can use specific examples. Try to think back to what legislation you can remember. Think of the logos you can see on the back of electronic products. What do they mean? Okay, so 10 marks, 10 minutes. Please pause the video, have a go at answering it, and then we'll go through the answers. So possible legislation you could talk about. So RoHS, battery directive, WEEE directive, anything like that. So you can have take like the WEEE directive. So this is covering recycling waste electronics. So they aim to have more than 85% of it recycled by 2016. Battery directive to make sure that you're getting disposed of at the end of life, and that it's not covering, so it's not using things like cadmium, mercury, chromium, those sort of things, which is covered under the restriction of hazardous substances. So make sure you don't get those two mixed up. So how the impact on the design. So selection and use of raw materials, designed to ensure that it meets those standards, designed to make sure it's able to be recycled, to make it able to be reused, it's easy to be taken apart, you're not having lots of waste materials. Possibly examples you're going to pick, things like energy efficient light bulbs, household appliances, so your kettles, you could have washing machines, dishwashers, that sort of thing, IT equipment, and then any like electronic equipment like phones, that sort of thing. So make sure you know what directives they could be covering. So next question, figure 1 and 2 are health and safety signs. Name a specific process or situation where you'll see each of these signs in use. So you've got 6 marks in total. So pause the video, give yourself 6 minutes, and we'll go through it. Okay, so the first one, so sanding low hazardous material, except like airbrush, spray painting, anything like that. That's like spray, so there's going to be solvents or things in the air, so wear a mask. So figure 2, handling hot material. So that means like welding, casting, glue gun, things like that. So explain why there's need to take precautions shown in each sign. So dust mask suitable, so exposure level, so you're not going to breathe in and it's not going to be hazardous to you. Figure 2, which is the gloves. So protect gloves must be worn where there's a risk of burning from hot items to prevent damage to the user. So that is health and safety standards testing. If you've got any questions, please send me a message on Teams or via email. And as I said before, if you are unsure of any of it from first year, please go have a look back through that first year video as well.